At 2840, it's blood spatter, not blood splatter, you dummy. Sean, which one of us said that? I'm very curious to know.
I didn't look. I don't know. It could have easily been either of us, though. I will say that we're both totally capable of making that mistake.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime Unsolved. This is the place where we tackle the stories that the TV networks won't touch. Guys, it's Monday. Sean and I are back for a comment reaction video. This is our most enjoyable part of the process where we get to interact with our audience directly, read what you guys have to say about the cases that we've been covering, get into a little back and forth, and have a little fun with it sometimes even. Sean, is there any channel business that we need to get into before we get started?
No, I mean, we're in the middle of a new case, the William Bill Dudley disappearance from 1993. It's a really weird, strange case. And if you've seen our case breakdown, which went up on Friday, then stay tuned for this next Friday, which is going to be with Bill's children, his daughters, who actually approached us about that. And other than that, you know, things are cruising along as usual here. I'm excited. We haven't done one of these in a couple weeks, I think, which always breaks our heart. But we're here today, and we're ready to read some comments.
Absolutely. We said we weren't going to acknowledge it, but
you know, I do feel bad. I feel like we always come back and say, sorry, we haven't done it.
Yeah, because we keep promising we're not going to miss the comment react, and then we miss it. But we're here, and that's what matters.
Like a deadbeat dad who keeps missing like all the sports games or something. We're like, oh, we'll be there next time, Tiger. I promise you. And then we're not there, and the kid's standing with his baseball mitt after the game looking for his dad in the parking lot. Anyway, guys, we're not like that. We're trying not to be like that.
Well, we're the dad that's actually at work, because we are putting up the case breakdowns and the interviews, and the work continues. So
right, that's a really good point.
If the comment react is us showing up for the ball game, the deep dives on the cases are us going to work and paying for a college education. But maybe that's just my Gen X take on things. Should we dive into it?
I love that. Yeah, guys, let's do it. We're here at the game today, and that's what matters. So let's play our best, right?
Yeah.
You want to start it off?
We're gonna have some fun. All right. We're gonna start with some comments on Fauna Frey. And these go back a couple of weeks to just a couple of days ago. We're digging in here now because, as Sean said, we haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks. So let's get into it. Grimy 2222252 says, it's probably foul play, but I have to wonder how much of the situation has to do with a psychotic break. The immense amount of stress from losing her brother after losing her sister and mother could have triggered her mental illness that led to her doing drugs, which can lead to a schizophrenic episode, or the intense paranoia and delusion that can lead to feeling the need to have a burner phone of bizarre behavior, like abandoning her car and losing herself in the woods. Just thinking out loud. Poor Fauna, my heart goes out to her and her family. Grimy, you're not the first person to bring that up, that there could have been some sort of like emotional mental break going on, brought on by the trauma of these back-to-back losses, right, in her life, these important people in her family. Also the fact that she was the person that found her brother's corpse. They lived together. There's a lot going on there. I will say the whole thing with the burner phone, that was like a weird idiosyncratic habit of Fauna's that predated the deaths in her family. She was just someone who liked to use those prepaid phones. So that wasn't necessarily related to what this was. That wasn't necessarily related to the trauma and the situation of her losing those family members. You see what else you got going on here. Yeah, did she abandon her car? We don't know. Did she end up with some other people and she parked her car, or they parked her car? I mean, these are all the big questions, right? I see you're kind of laying out a version of it where, she abandoned the car and went off into the woods, which is quite possible. Definitely not what the most people who have responded to this case tend to feel happened here. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be considered, right? It's one of these things where a lot of the stuff that Fauna was doing was weird. I mean, frankly, just to call it out, I mean, she went on this long multi-day road trip in her car by herself with a ton of money planning to just disperse it to her deceased brother's friends, but she didn't bring things that you would bring, like extra clothes, like toiletries, things that if you're going to be gone for multiple days, it just seems obvious you would want that. And so we see her buying these things at like gas stations and convenience stores, just random packs of clothing and stuff. So is that because she's mentally ill or having a break, or is she just staying out longer than she planned, or just didn't think about this, or because of grief, she's not thinking clearly and kind of reacting in the moment? I don't know. I will say one thing we have never heard is that anybody that actually did meet her right before her disappearance, because some people did, she went and visited some of her brother's friends. No one said that she seemed psychotic, mentally ill, out of her head, on drugs, like nothing out of the ordinary, right? So what she was doing from the outside might look, unusual, but it didn't seem like it was unusual to the people who were actually interacting with her during that time period. It seemed like Fauna was just one of these people who had some peculiar habits, maybe some peculiar ways of going about things. And also, her brother had just died, and she was extremely close to him. And so that's going to put anybody in a weird headspace where maybe the decision-making starts to look a little unusual. To me, this looks like foul play, right? For all the reasons that are in that case breakdown. Fauna's satchel, her leather satchel, was found at this suspicious property. People believe they saw her with some of the people from this property, and her car was parked way out of the way with all of her stuff basically in it. So why would she park it and walk into the woods? Yeah, sure, a psychotic break, but it seems like there's enough here where we would want to maybe clear up foul play before going there, because I don't feel like foul play has been ruled out. Do you, Miles? It seems like that's very much on the table. And certainly what most of the people looking at this case seem to feel like happened. The question is, who did it, right? Who's involved and who knows something?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, I tend to lean towards foul play, but I think, it's sort of like foul play brought on by someone who was a bit mixed up, perhaps a bit lost, both physically and emotionally, and not in a super focused state of mind, where she would have been a bit susceptible to someone, kind of like taking advantage of her in a way.
Yeah.
I do think that Fauna's state of mind plays into this story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it's the only factor.
No. I mean, the one interesting thing here that I would like to know more about is this person mentions maybe she started using drugs or had already kind of had that habit. And that is something I've wondered about too, because the people that she's suspected to have maybe encountered were all basically transient drug users living on a property. And so what would she have to do with them? I mean, normally you try to stay away from those types of people unless you have that one thing in common. But then I go back to the fact that Fauna lived with her father, who we spoke to, and he never said anything like about her having substance abuse issues or even being suspicious of it. Now, not that she couldn't and have successfully hidden it from him, or not that it couldn't have started this week while she was on the road. I mean, we don't know. That's for sure a possible X factor. But in talking to him, it didn't seem like that was really top of mind as far as his theories or concerns went, which made it sort of not top of mind for me either. But is it on the table? Yeah, technically, I think it's on the table. We can't know from what we have right now, sadly.
Yeah, agreed. You want to read this next one?
Yeah, this is from Itzlan 230, also about Fauna Frey's case. And they say, you ever think it could be an inside job? I thought that was an interesting comment because I'm not really sure what they mean. Like, inside of what? Inside of one of her brother's friends, maybe, that she was trying to meet and knew that she had all this money she was dispersing? Inside of, I don't know, like who? Because it was really just her and her car alone. So what's the inside that you're referencing? I suppose it could be if there was some group of people who knew that she had this. Like, again, I keep going back to this group of folks that were said to be living on this property, kind of living a fringe, drug using criminal lifestyle. An inside job from them, if one of them somehow found out she had valuables and they conspired to take it and she got hurt. Yeah, I mean, I definitely lean that way. So if that's what you mean, then sure, I believe it. I mean, what do you make of this, Miles? Am I reading that right?
The only thing I can think of is her dad, because that's really the only inside person that was left in Fauna's life. I mean, again, unless you're, as Sean said, unless you're referring to the folks that she had been visiting and dropping, her brother's belongings off with. But a lot of those people that she had met with were questioned as part of the investigation because the dad knew where she was going. So I would love more clarity on that. Itzlan. It is an interesting comment. I think the internet's a place where people love inside jobs and they love to talk about inside jobs. So I'd love to know what the inside job for Fauna Frey might be. It's interesting.
Right on.
Also on Fauna, Bradley Gomez, 8655. I hope I'm getting that right. It's Gomez with an S at the end. Says at 2840, it's blood spatter, not blood splatter. You dummy. Sean, which one of us said that? I'm very curious to know.
I didn't look. I don't know. It could have easily been either of us, though. I will say that we're both totally capable of making that mistake.
Yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it was me. That seems like something I would just flippantly, accidentally get wrong. I love this because it's one of those things on the internet where someone's being kind of rude, but they're also totally right. And you have to give it to them for correcting us on that. You could have maybe left off the dummy part, but you know what? Like, that's all right. It's the YouTube comment section. You got to be ready for that. Yeah, good correction, Bradley Gomez.
And Google AI says, in forensic science and formal writing, blood spatter is the correct and preferred term. While everyday speech treats spatter and splatter as the same, experts use spatter to mean small, precise droplets and reserve splatter for a larger random mess. So the technical difference is spatter are small drops or fine particles scattered by a force, while splatter still refers to a heavy, large, or splashy mess of liquid. I do believe in this moment, or in this instance, we were talking about small drops or fine particles. So he wins. He's right. But I will say, I have to ask if Bradley is a forensic expert. And do you work in the business, Bradley? And if so, I'm flattered that you're watching our channel. But thank you for the comment.
He may or may not be a forensic expert, but one thing I'm sure he is a delightful dinner guest. All right, I'll take this next one. We're moving on to another case. This is Kristin Brueggemann. We haven't talked about this one in a while, but it's one of our more recent cases. I'd say. What do you think, Miles? The last 2 or 3 months, I think, is when we talked about Kristin
over the summer. Yep.
So we got some interesting stuff on her. Somebody commented twice that seems like they knew her. And if that's the case, we would love to actually talk to you if you have anything you think you'd like to add to our coverage of her case. But this is a user named Brianna Hensley, 6450. They commented, LMPD did not do enough for my friend. And then a crying emoji. Yeah, it feels that way. And they also commented separately, she was most definitely with the wrong people that night. They were not her friends. I never left her drunk alone and definitely never out in those hours. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that this commenter knew Kristin, and it's interesting to say that she's clarifying that the people she was out with that night were not her friends. I mean, my memory of that case is that those were her ex-boyfriend's friends, people that maybe she was acquainted with. And when Kristin got kind of drunk and there was a problem at the bar, she threw up. They all got kicked out. You could see how maybe these people who didn't really know her or consider her a friend might have felt comfortable saying, we're out of here. Like, we're not responsible for you. We're all going to go somewhere else. And she either didn't want to go with them or did, but wasn't allowed to. Either way, that was the moment everything went really wrong, I think. Because that's the last time that Kristin was seen alive by another human being. I mean, we have her on a couple cameras in that neighborhood after that. But it just goes to show you, being out drinking, leaving people alone, especially young women in dangerous parts of town who have had way too much to drink and they don't know anybody, that can really turn badly. And I think we've seen a lot of times on this channel when young people sort of assume that bad things won't happen to them, right? Maybe because of just being young and the lack of experience, and bad things only happen on TV or on YouTube channels like ours. But in real life, if you leave people in situations like that, it can get ugly really quick. And I think this user is kind of lamenting that that's exactly what happened to her friend, and that she wasn't there that night to help her out, which is a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Brianna, if you're watching this comment react, and you want to talk to us, we'd love to talk to you on the record or off the record. If you want to do a follow up video on the case with us, what you know, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. All right. You want to take this next
Yeah.
little?
So we're gonna move on to Wilma June Nissen, which is a pretty recent case that we did this summer. And as you guys know, we interviewed her daughter. So this is a really, really sad and tragic case. So Ruru, 8392. Hi, Ruru. It's good to see you. Thanks for still being a member and hanging in with us and always being there and supporting the channel. We appreciate you. It really is sad for Wilma June and for her daughter's search to come to that end. As far as the case with the way her body was found, that sounds to me more like something a man would do. Sorry, guys. I think she means guys in general, not us. But then again, the rope to drag her, maybe it was a woman who couldn't carry the weight of the body. I mean, that's what I always thought. The evidence of the rope, the fact that it was left, it felt to me like maybe also because the one person that we know that was connected to her was that other working woman who she was known to team up with and who was known to sort of take advantage of both clients and other women that she was working with. So, it always spoke to me that, maybe it's just because it's the only thing that is there in that case that perhaps that person was involved because, they were kind of looked at as a suspect. I think, though, that the thing that really stands out for me that Ruru is saying is just how sad it is for Wilma June, and for her daughter's search to come to that end, because here was a woman who found out who she was, in a way, found out who her biological mother was, and tried to find her, and for years was trying to find her, and then turns out that the entire time that she's been trying to find her mother's actually been deceased and laying in this shallow grave, which is just so tragic. And this story really hit us both hard, I think, Sean. It's a tragic tale.
Yeah, because it's different than some of these stories where someone's life is normal and happy up until the moment something goes wrong. Wilma June's entire life was horrible. I mean, there's almost no way to just sugarcoat it. It was just tragedy from day one. And hearing it from Krissi and everything that she had to learn about her mom, once her mom was actually identified and she got to really go back and start putting the pieces together, it's like just a horror show of a life. I mean, one of these things where it's like driving down the street and every single intersection is a red light, just bad luck all the way down. I will say, Ruru, I was intrigued by your thought that this murder kind of looked like something a man would do, because I had the same thought when we were first looking at this case, and they were telling, the investigators were saying that basically they believe a woman might be responsible. It just is so hyper violent, and usually you do think of a man when you think of that. When women kill, statistically, it's from a distance, there's poisonings or contract killings, that will get somebody else to do it and remove themselves because women are really smart. And they tend not to get as up close and personal and physical, but it does happen, right? And I think especially if we really look at who these people were, I mean, these women were probably pretty tough living the life that they were all living, working as escorts in the 1970s, driving state to state, working for these basically organized rings that would put them to work, and God knows what kind of things they put up with. So, it might be a little different than a housewife suddenly snapping and getting this violent. This is probably somebody who is pretty familiar with altercations and physical violence, no matter how you cut it. But yeah, it's definitely like it sticks out. It definitely sticks out one way or the other.
Yeah.
Should I read this next one, I guess?
Yeah.
KG?
Yeah, KG
All right.
Penguin.
Yeah, we're bringing out the all-stars here. Hi, KG. How are you? Thank you also for always supporting the channel and for your amazing comments. Let's see what you got to say today. Say, hey guys, hope you are doing well. With the evidence from the case, including that rope and Wilma Jean's clothing, it would be fantastic if the M-Vac machine could be used on those items, especially the rope. If the investigators don't have access to one, they can see if their state lab has an M-Vac. It's especially good with things like ropes, bindings, etc. It can get DNA from the very smallest crevices of things like a rope, even the waistband of her pants possibly, but definitely that rope. The M-Vac has been used to solve some very old cold cases where evidence was left out in the elements for 20 plus years. Wow. Wouldn't it be amazing if this case got solved by Krissi pushing to have her mom's case looked into? Well, we'll certainly pass that along. So the M-Vac machine is an interesting piece of technology, Miles. I don't know if you've heard of these before, but like the way I had it described to me is it's basically like a carpet cleaner for DNA. So it's like a wet vacuum. It sprays a solvent type material onto something like a rope or a piece of clothing. And then the solvent sort of like pulls DNA off and it vacuums it back in to a DNA analysis machine. So stuff that's been sort of like in the crevices of a rope or deep in the fibers of a clothing for decades can now be sort of like sucked out and looked at in a way that just a normal swab wouldn't really be able to get. I hadn't thought of that. That's really clever, KG. I don't know if anybody's, put their heads together and figured out, taking a look at this on Wilma June's case, but it seems like this is a pretty appropriate one that maybe that would help along, I guess the other thing is then you'd have to find the DNA of the person that we're suspecting might be involved in this and compare it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'd have to actually get the investigators like interested enough to bring in somebody who has that technology. And I just don't know if it's there with this case. I hate to say it. I mean, that's the problem with some of these cases, especially one with, a victim like Wilma June. And we see this again and again where, the person's life circumstances can kind of influence the veracity of the investigation and the willingness to go the extra mile to solve it. On that
I'd be curious
note,
to know if the rope. Sorry, real quick. I'd be curious to know if the rope even still exists. It
right.
seems like the kind of thing that either a really detail-oriented, department would hold on to, but that a lot of times we've seen cases where they go back years later to find it and it's like gone, right? Somebody lost it during a move or a reorganization. That happens an alarming amount. It seems like to evidence like this rope. You hear about it all the time.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I just wanted to toss that.
No. It's a good point. I mean, and it's speculation. We don't want to disparage these investigators in this department without even knowing the circumstances. But in general, that is something that you see. JJL 3858 says, "Good thoughts and wishes to you, Krissi. Such a horrible thing that happened to your mom. Thank you for sharing with us your findings. Keep brave, strong, and stay sane. You are awesome." Those are really nice thoughts, Jay. I have a feeling that you're in another country and this is a little bit translated because your cadence. Thank you for sharing with us your findings. I like that. I like the way that you talk. And I like the thoughts that you're sending out to Krissi. I don't really have much more to add to that other than we agree. Stay sane. Definitely hard to do after a long search for your origins and a long search for your mother and it comes to that end.
Yeah. I love it when people have like well wishes for our guests and they leave them because I know that our guests see them and I think it is nice and it helps. Everything is usually so horrible in these stories that a little bit of positivity from a stranger can sometimes go a long way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we've had a lot of participants, people that we've interviewed, let us know that they're there and they're watching and they're reading the comments and they're responding to the outpouring of support. So it does mean a lot. Absolutely. We've got one more comment on Wilma June. You want to take this?
Yeah, this is from Sharon, who is also a member, not only a subscriber, but a real full-time member. Thank you for that, Sharon, for your support. It means a lot to us. She says, "The circumstances of her death are horrifying. Interesting that Krissi says her boots were in pristine condition, given the implication that she was dragged, almost like they were put on after. I don't know if or how the cold case organization Krissi is with now expands, but she may consider reaching out to the Cold Case Foundation that Chris McDonough is a partner in. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Again, another thing we'll try to pass along. I will say the boots. So it is interesting that Wilma June's clothing was mostly removed or torn off, but that the boots were still on and the rope was kind of around her ankle. My read of that is that because she was dragged, the boots may have been off the ground, right? Like if someone was pulling you from your ankles or just had a rope around them, well, the rest of your body would be dragged along the ground, but not your feet and not your ankles, and therefore maybe not your boots. I don't know, Miles. What do you make of that?
No, I agree. I mean, that's the way I saw it. I
Yeah,
do think that rope was used to drag her. Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, guys, that's all we've got comment wise this week. Like I said, we are catching up on a lot of stuff. This Friday, we are going to be posting up our interview with Bill Dudley's daughters. If you're following that case, which a lot of you guys are, you're going to want to tune into that, and we'll probably be doing a comment react on everything that everyone's been saying about Bill Dudley for next Monday. So stay tuned for that. We might be getting some other interviews on that case as well. If so, those will be coming up, and if not, we'll be posting a new case the following week.
Thank you, everybody, as always, for your thoughts and comments. Keep them coming. We really do enjoy doing these videos, just as much as dads enjoy going to those sports games, maybe even more, honestly. And don't forget, we are also a podcast. So if you don't like seeing us, but you love listening to it, that's the perfect venue for you. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon, and all the rest. Other than that, we'll see you next week.